Hey, welcome everyone to the fourth episode of the Lodgecast. We are pleased to have today with us Josh Furnas, who is head of product at Reserve. So my name is Braden. I am today using the Lodge account, and I am joined by Chad, my co-host today. We had a slight change of plans. Malo and Alex are out today due to various reasons, but Chad is in. So Chad, could you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, what's going on, Braden? Thanks for having me last minute. We'll make it work. My name's Chad. I like to think of myself as the community DGen. And so I'm excited to get started.
Cool. And Josh, I don't know, do you want to test to make sure your microphone works?
Test 1, 2. How's it going?
Hey, it sounds good.
Great.
Good morning. So, hey, could you just go through and quickly introduce yourself and kind of like your reserve or your role at large at Reserve?
Sounds good. Hey, everyone. First, I didn't realize it was on Twitter Spaces. I spent a little bit of time getting my hair ready, which is a little bit of a pain for me since it's longer and I haven't cut it since pre-COVID. But I guess that's probably better for everyone since you don't have to look too closely at it. At Reserve, I'm almost 3.5 years in from when Nevin and I first got into contact, started working together, and that the role has been evolving over the years as we've gone from exploring where we can utilize the stablecoin to our initial MVP experiments in LATAM, then focusing on Venezuela, and then starting to scale a product that we like that's working and scaling a team that's working. So a lot of my time now is spent on bringing in new talent. It's also spent on making sure we've got great processes that'll help us build efficient product, and then also helping like Nevin and Gabo distill a vision into a strong product strategy.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, so a lot of us are kind of fans of Reserve, and I think you've been here since the very beginning, so it's very good to see somebody, other than Nevin and Gabo, that have been able to see the company really evolve from the inside. So good. And so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been a journey from, I think, I don't know, a dozen or so people in an office in Oakland, California, to now nearly 200 spread all over the world. It's been pretty fun.
That must be, yeah, that would be really cool. Okay, so kind of first question, since we were talking about Nevin and Gabo, they have both indicated that RPay is gearing up for some massive moves soon. What can you tell us about any recent developmental approach changes?
Okay. Yeah. I think there's been a few shifts that we've seen. One major one is just market related, and so as the inflation has been cooling in Venezuela, which is great for the people and the economy, the general demand for a simple service like a savings account and pure payments that are just doing those things, there's not enough utility there. But we've always known that those were just initial steps to building more utility for the stablecoin and around it for people, and I think this has just accelerated the next step. So where we were focusing on just scaling the initial service to keep up with demand, this is allowing us to go broader, take on more utility quicker, and so that's meant Q1. Actually, our top company objective in Q1 was increasing our speed of delivering features, and so a lot of that was about laying foundations that was both from expanding the team size across product design engineering roles, and it was also about allowing for more teams to be able to hang out in our code base and deliver more quickly. So what that's meant is we've got two exciting pillars there, an updated strategy to go more broadly than just scaling in Venezuela, as well as more team members owning owning a broader area of objectives. Happy to go into those too if that sounds like fun.
Yes, please. If you could, my screen turned off.
Yeah. So well, actually, a little bit more detail there. A lot of what Reserve had been building on the RPay side had been like a pseudo single large product and development team. We would split off into small sections based on initiatives on occasion, but a lot of it was still around one large team and much larger than the two pizza rule that Bezos is famous for. So for what makes an efficient team. So we're pretty excited now that we've grown the team in the first quarter and continue to do so. But we're going to right off the bat, actually, starting to some extent starting Monday. So we're doing a lot of prep this last week for this. We're going to be at 3 full product and development teams, and so the initial structures here are our core tech team, which is kind of doing our foundational work to make sure the service stays efficient and up to speed, especially as we continue to scale our user base. And then we have a team focused on a strategy for our expanding markets. And so we've got a pretty innovative approach to on and off ramps, so we can get into new countries, new geos pretty quickly. So we have a team focused on that, and that team's also working on raising the bar for our app quality. We've done I think a good job of deciding how high of a bar we need versus the existing use cases we have, but for those of you that have experienced the app, there's still rough edges. It's still not a crisp, really high trust experience for the amount of edge cases that can occur. We're aware of a lot of that, and we're excited for that team to also start smoothing those. Well, we've been focused on that, but we're really excited for that team to really focus on smoothing those edge cases out. And then the third team is focused on the new utility beyond the savings accounts, the peer-to-peer payments, the merchant payments, and so there's a few new directions that we're really excited. We think can be regionally exciting and impactful for hopefully millions soon.
That's really cool. I think a few of those new things have been alluded to, but I don't think Reserve is ready to confirm any of that yet. So I'm proud.
Yeah, that's right.
So okay, that's pretty good. Would you say that there have been any major team structure enhancements that have directly affected what you do on a day-to-day basis?
In terms of directing or affecting what I do, I do think just the new team structures will require an increased amount of coordination. That always gets trickier when you get to multiple teams with independent objectives, looking to release towards their objectives. So there's a bit of creativity and trying to find an engine that works well for our team's current skill set, how far along they've been on board into Reserve, because a lot of these team members are fresh, learning the code base, learning our customers' behaviors, and so I find myself focusing on facilitating learned knowledge, making sure that we can make it accessible to new team members, to make sure that they can be, and so that those teams can be efficient, and then removing roadblocks as they come up in these new processes.
Well, okay. That's good. As somebody that's like, I'm a manager of a business myself, and it's always, you see so many improvements that you can make in a business, but like making those changes is always sometimes hard to kind of keep the product going or at the same time. So I'm glad we're able to make these changes.
Yeah, thanks for I think just maybe to add a little more on to your point there, there's a fine line between like creating over processizing. I don't even know if that's correctly a word, but creating too many processes with the guise of being more efficient versus finding ways that the tools or even like the strategy and the objectives are separate enough that they can minimize coordination or things that slow down feedback loops.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And so with that, I'll move over to Chad. Get the next question.
Yeah. So the next question, I guess, moving more towards the actual application. Is there any sort of behavior that users exhibit in the app that surprises or interests the team? Or is there any sort of behavior that you guys get really excited about going towards it? I know you guys used the term network effect in the past.
Yeah, that's good, Chad. Let's see. Well, I think there's a few. So actually on basically like the start of the year, like January 1st, the Bolivar to dollar exchange rate like in Venezuela was $4.70 bolivars for $1. Chad, what do you think that exchange rate is today? How many bolivars per dollar?
I think it's over 1 million, isn't it?
Oh, sorry. Well, it was at one point over 1 million before. I think it was last September. The government chopped off 6 zeros. But the around September, October, they chopped off 6 zeros, so it got back down to like around $4. It was like 4 million to 1. Then just all of a sudden the next day became 4 to 1. But January 1st it was $4.70 to $1, and now here, what are we? May 1st now. 4 months later, it's $4.76 to $1. So there's been virtually like no movement in terms of the inflation, or at least the exchange rate of dollars to bolivars. Yet, so when you look at that, you'd be like, well, then why would anybody be using the savings account in the reserve app in Venezuela? But I think a pretty interesting behavior is for like almost half, like 45% of our like new active customers are still just depositing their bolivars, even though this is the new reality. And so we dug into this a little bit recently. Talked to customers. Why are they using this? If the bolivar to dollar is flat, there's a little bit of a fee to go in and out, so they might lose a percent or two each way for what our independent liquidity providers take, but they're still doing it. Like they're still signing up and depositing bolivars even without inflation. So, do you have any guess, Chad or Braden, as to why?
I've never. I mean, that sounds interesting. I have no idea. I mean, I would have to guess that prices of actual products down there are probably going up a lot, right?
That could be an interesting one. That where like even the dollar prices of products are increasing. It could be the case. Yeah.
I would just say the social and mental space around the Bolivar has corrupted to such a point that people just disregard it in total and just go straight for US dollars.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the theme that we're seeing. We're the the crises that have happened haven't been necessarily foreseen, and when inflation might hit or when it might come back is just at the forefront of people's mind, and they're willing to sacrifice, you know, 1% or 2% in exchange rate if they do decide to withdraw it again, for that mental like stability of just having money that will stay, you know, considerably more stable and is less risky to have big swings like the Bolivar does. So even without inflation, we're seeing use and utility of the basic service, which is pretty cool. Another one that even though I think this maybe actually relates to it a bit. Another piece that's been pretty surprising is the savings rate per customer has been growing, and so the amount that people are holding per wallet. We've actually seen 2 major segments. We've seen a more, I wouldn't call it institutional, but maybe it's small medium business or higher net worth individuals trusting Reserve as a place to hold their money has been increasing. So like the average savings rate has been growing quite a bit so far this year, but also the median, which is a closer reflection to our retail customers, hasn't it? You wouldn't look at it as a substantial numbers, you know, from a first world maybe perspective, but people going from just a handful of dollars to doubling that, sometimes more at a median, can be pretty substantial, saying, you know, where they're keeping their money. So that's been pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's very interesting. So I'm gonna ping you back to Braden for our next question.
Okay.
Yeah, that is. I had thought about that, and it was, you know, like what will happen if, you know, the Bolivar stabilizes, even for a small period of time. What would happen to the demand of the app? And it still seems like there hasn't been any sort of since November, any sort of decay of growth at all. So nothing really remarkable, at least. So that is interesting. So I guess like our next question is, what's one of the more intriguing customer desires around their financial stability that you're hearing?
Okay. One of so maybe two come to mind. One of our we haven't productized this service, but we've got some awesome on the ground and business development teams that are tinkering with different types of utility to offer people. And I don't know how much we've chatted about like the growth or our payroll service, but it's been interesting to see a wide range of businesses, small to couple, like hundreds of employees, have been wanting the stability in paying customers with and more just a more paying employees a more predictable rate that ends up being fair for both customers employees and the business. And so we've seen a lot of our or a decent chunk, I think it's probably around it's double digits, probably around 20% of our new active customers are actually being asked to sign up for Reserve by their employers and say, like, this is where your paycheck's gonna be coming in. And so these are people that didn't like, this is very different than what we've seen historically, where, you know, friends and family would say, hey, this is where you can save and or send me money. And so like they hear a bit about Reserve, but this is almost like companies signing up their employees to Reserve. And then these employees are like, I don't quite know what this is, but this is how I get money. And they come in without much of an understanding of what they can do with Reserve. They don't, to some extent, they have a bit of anxiety with this new service, and they get their first paycheck and they get to a withdrawal. They do have a pretty awesome like aha moment with how fast they can get dollars back into any other currency that they want to make or use spendable, and then over time they start seeing more of the utility that they can put money in there, that they can our invite feature where you can see your other friends and family that use Reserve, especially in areas like Venezuela. The median number of people that when someone signs up, how many other people do they know that already have Reserve? It's almost double digits. So these people will get a payroll service to start, but then they'll notice, oh, I also have friends or contacts that use Reserve, and then they start the peer-to-peer, the money staying in the ecosystem starts increasing there. So that's been a pretty intriguing customer behavior. I don't know if you want to comment on that one. I do have another one that comes to mind.
Yeah. No, I do. So I don't know. I can't remember the exact number of people that join every day, but I think it's somewhere around 1,500 to 2,500, or maybe that's per week. Can you correct me on that?
I haven't looked tightly at that. You probably I know that those. I've noticed some graphs of that cumulative wallet count. You probably derive it there pretty quickly. My guess is, like from a daily standpoint, some days, like especially weekends, can get down to 500, but other days, can spike 1,500, 2,000 in that range.
So you're basically saying that on average, 400 to 500 people per day are being asked new to be paid by their employers through Reserve, and that's their employers or them asking. That's like a lot of people. Wow.
And that would be on the upper bound if if they were hitting that 1,500 to 2,000. But our peer-to-peer, because like a little under half of our wallets are funded by people who are coming in to fund with bolivars, that use case we just mentioned, and then it's been a pretty surprising growth of about 40% of wallets are funded peer-to-peer only, and that would be a decent percentage of those. Around half, so like that 20% of that 40% are coming from employers funding those people's wallets via peer-to-peer, and then the other half of those 40% are like friends and family or remittances funding the funding new customers' wallets. Yeah.
I think that's really crazy. Even if it was, half of that number, I would still find it extremely remarkable. But you had what you wanted to say.
Actually, remind me the core question again.
Oh yeah. What are the intriguing customer desires around their stability?
Yeah, another one, as we've been thinking about the utility of Reserve, the increase in how to help people grow their money has been something that our customers have been talking to us about a lot, and so there's two pretty obvious functions there. One is how do we make the dollar that they're saving, the stable coin that they're saving, just grow in yield, and we're very excited for the R token reality coming out and having a portion of the yield generation being able to go to customers. But the other one is just in investments. And so what are investments that our customers would be looking for? And we've been looking at some fairly standard feature sets there. But one of the things that's been surprising us more is in Latin America, the desire for access to what like a lot of Europeans and Americans have in terms of blue chip or popular or popular stocks is just really hard to get access to there. You either have to have American accounts, have to have privileged access to a broker, or a fairly complicated process moving money between between jurisdictions as like legal and user experience complexities. So I think that's a pretty intriguing demand. I think it's not an easy one to fill, whether it's through synthetics or tokenizations. I don't think anything's quite there yet, but that's something for us to keep an eye on, because if that's what the customers are looking for, we should be investing time into figuring out how we could be potentially leading the charge on making that happen.
Wow is all I can say to that one. Wow. That'd be really cool. Okay. I think Chad has the next question here. Oh, actually, hold on, real quick before I do that. So if you guys have any questions, if Josh is up to it, if we're able to continue going after we're done asking questions, we'll open it up to a Q&A. But we would like you to send your questions to Chad prior, and then we'll call you up and you guys can become a speaker and ask Josh questions if he has the time.
Yep, that sounds good. Josh, I actually want to circle back to what you just said, if you don't mind, before the next question. So are you suggesting that maybe it would be Reserve could potentially have a feature like a Robinhood type app or a Webull type app that will allow people of Venezuela to access other things other than cryptocurrencies?
I think there's a lot of hurdles on that journey, but when we think about where our expertise is and where our interests are, so when you look at the R token and how much more valuable the R token ecosystem can be with how much more is tokenized, you see some strong synergies between our overall mission and some of our near-term customer desires in terms of what type of investable assets they want. So, while I wouldn't say anything on that realm would be around the corner, you can put those two. You can kind of put those two together in terms of what where there could be some good strategic alignment.
Yeah, that sounds big. I think I guess we'll leave it there. The next question we have is, so Reserve has been very successful. I think all of us here would agree. But has there been any single biggest opportunity or idea that Reserve failed to execute perfectly? And what did you guys learn from it?
Ooh. Okay. Well, I'd say, Chad, the first thing that comes to mind is like failed to execute perfectly. I think almost everything we intentionally don't execute perfectly, and like perfect, just use like perfect is would be a choice that is and I think that is a bit of an enemy for perfection, is a bit of an enemy for growth, and it's an enemy for learning. There's a lot of value in the speed and the breadth of which we experiment with things, that I think perfection isn't in the vocabulary here right now. But maybe taking the question a little less directly, like whereas Reserved like just maybe missed or like not done execution exceptionally.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Or maybe any failures that you could touch on that things just didn't work out, and then how did you get around them?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. This is going to be a fun one to reflect on, like as we go further and further, as there's more and more in retrospect. Where might we have missed? I'm wondering, like the biggest thing that comes to mind is like I've been pretty excited, pretty proud of what we've decided to execute. How well those have gone. I think misses, as we look more in retrospect over time, um, if there were to be some pretty heavy ones, they might just come strategically. Like we're always battling internally about like how much do we focus on the existing product market fit in Venezuela versus how transferable is that? We have the desires for the what would you call it, like the Uberization model, where the we can then transfer something that's gotten big with network effects in Venezuela to a next area. But the more we get into details and the regional differences, Venezuela versus others is there's some trickiness. There's some trickiness there. So I think we've even done some good jobs recently, not building some larger, more complex things that would have been pretty effective and might be pretty effective still in the Venezuela market. But it's us making a choice to not go for a local maximum, um, uh, and shift strategically to a more global maximum, or in this case, probably a regional maximum. And so that has been some tricky strategic decisions of building for value in one area that might not be transferable, and is that a good idea versus trying to build value that's more regional at this point. A specific one. Oh man, I don't like. I'm thinking of our core feature sets around our on-off ramps, some of the automation that we've done there, our invitations and our virality there. Like that's even that, like most people can over, it's in like some companies can overinvest on like an invitations and virality system, but ours is done pretty well. We there's hundreds of invites that people are sending out a day. The invite system is double digits as a percent of our new accounts, and we've invested in the peer-to-peer experience. Well, there's a bunch of things that have gone pretty well there. There's been a lot of growth in the peer-to-peer. So I'm not hitting an obvious like, man, we like this is an execution miss, Chad.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, the answer could obviously always be that there hasn't been, due to so much success. And maybe if there was something that appeared that it wasn't working out, maybe you guys pivoted very quickly. But I guess the answer could always be, yeah, we haven't really had a big miss yet, and that's totally cool.
Yeah. I'm like, make me think like where have we spent a lot of time in development that then just kind of lagged or didn't go anywhere. I think there's another piece to our tactics that is worth highlighting on that point, which is we just have we've done a good job building like foundational tools for a lot of different types of teams: sales, merchant development, the payroll teams, other areas of business development, that they can go and experiment without us overly architecting things. And so, even though it's a bit of a high like human cost and coordination cost, that seems to be a better place for us to spend the energy versus the scarcity of the development resources, and so they go and experiment with all these things like we've done, some of the community investments that are potentially learning where community can become feature sets in the app soon. And so we have this like two-phased approach where we build it just enough for our team members and different squads to go experiment. A lot of it doesn't work out. A lot of it kind of a lot of initiatives don't hit high growth, but some do, and then we productize them and or they roll into our upcoming strategy, which I think that's also just helped us not misexecute too much because we have that development product team and enabling, but then investing heavily in our on the ground teams and those teams are pretty innovative. Like they create tooling themselves on top of some basic infrastructure to truly try to experiment with their use case and deliver value. So that's probably one of the major reasons we haven't like overly built something in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that wraps up that question. I'll pass you back over to Braden, who will ask the next question.
Oh, I'm gonna unwrap the question and ask it again in a different way. So people kind of draw a lot of analogies between PayPal and Reserve. Do you think that PayPal, the co-founders, that they would be proud of Reserve? And it's not exactly the same company, obviously, but do you think that your opposite person at PayPal would be proud of where you guys are at and how you have executed?
I think that I don't know them and haven't read enough about them, so it'd be interesting to ask Nevin this question. I'm sure he'd have a more detailed, more correlated answer. But my guess would be, if anything, they would be saying we're not taking big enough risks fast enough. Like I think they would be encouraging of us to be shooting a few more levels above our previous, like when we look at the last few years, our previous goals. And so there's things that maybe we've been conservative with in terms of our run rate, which I think can be really smart strategy. They might spend more like they did. They might spend more on marketing to hit network effects faster. We were pretty intentional about that. We thought we were spending the right ways, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had some insights as to how we should be shooting higher, faster. And I do think though that theme is, I say that because it's also just where we're going with our strategy. I think we're going more ambitious, more quickly, and like Gabo and Nevin have done a great job of kind of shifting it to that gear. A lot of the new hires, new team members that we have coming in across leadership roles, I think, are a reflection of that.
I like that answer a lot. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
So next up, what is Reserve most excited about in terms of features or items that has released recently? What are you and Reserve most excited about?
From recent releases. Okay.
Yeah, in the last week, month, quarter kind of a thing.
Okay. Let's see how good my memory is in those time frames. So it's going to be better in the last week. And in the last week, I think we had we've had a pretty big win, a long time coming. It was more of a prioritization problem, but with one of our team members getting out a pretty big update to one of our USD payment on and off ramps, one of our more popular ones, one of our top two, and the result of that will be, I think, 5 to 7 operations team members won't need to be dealing with a lot of manual issues and errors. So it's like we're reducing our internal cost and complexity there pretty quickly. But then also the impact for customers moving money into their wallet, like moving USD into their wallets, is a pretty big use case for us. Like the majority of volume is actually, even it's not the majority of customers, it's the majority of volume is moving USD into their reserve wallet to then make it more usable in their local economies. So that just got a whole lot faster for customers in one of our 2 major payment methods. So that was pretty cool. That happened last week. Last month, I think, I forget what we called it, like a town hall, like a month or 2 ago. One of the things that we mentioned was that Argentina overtook Colombia as the number 2 market, and it's still been growing quite quickly, kind of outpacing Colombia, outpacing Peru, which is pretty cool to see. But a big piece of that was just how we enabled money movement in Colombia. It was pretty bad, pretty manual, yet people were still using it substantially. So it's another kind of payment rails upgrade specifically for Colombia. Customers had to wait. I'll just give you a quick stat here. Customers had to wait, I think it was like 45 minutes to move money in or out of their reserve wallet in Colombia. And in the last month, with the new on-off ramp development there, it's down to like 6 minutes, and I wouldn't be surprised if some more efficiencies show up and it's going to be down to like 2 to 3 minutes on average. So I think it's going to really open up Colombia for more real-time use cases, and that was a huge benefit for us in Venezuela when we went from multiple hours to 15-20 minutes down to now in Venezuela it's I think it's like on average like 20 seconds for your money to go from your reserve wallet to your bank account, and that's when growth really started happening in Venezuela. So there could be kind of the opening of doors there for Colombia now, which is pretty cool. So that's happened in the last month. Was there another, or what was the?
Can that same technology be ported to like other countries, those markets?
Yeah, I think our model for on-off ramps, there's some UX challenges to it. Like if you're in countries that have open banking APIs, and you can in a couple taps connect your fintech wallet to your bank account, and then they can always be transferring data and or money to each other. Those things are ideal, and I think those will be coming more and more across LATAM. We've been watching some of the infrastructure plays there, but our independent liquidity provider approach that we talk about, I think is a really strong, like legally compliant, legally light from reserve side, and good enough UX for customers that it can be fairly quickly turned up in multiple regions, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see like pieces of that happening much quicker at reserve.
Very interesting. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
And I actually so for what it's worth, I stole that question from somebody, question that somebody DM'd us because yeah. But they were asking about Mexico. So,
Okay.
and I think Chad, you're up.
Yeah, so I guess the last question before we have maybe one or two DMs. Where are you trying to improve in your product development process to continually raise the success of the organization?
Okay. So, yeah, maybe a few specifics here, just so you get some, light into like the existing challenges. So as we're finally getting to these multiple development teams approaches, there's a few things that have held us back from releasing quickly and efficiently, and that has a whole set of cascading effects behind it. Like, creates a traffic jam of of just items to release, but that also gets back all the way to, like, when we think about how to plan what to do, you get in this, like, if you know things can end up in a traffic jam, or the release cycles um, um, aren't aren't as real time or release when ready as you'd want. It just affects, you can just kind of hear it can affect everything from planning to ideation to types of features and what way to release. And so we're really focusing on some of our release infrastructure. One of the things that we've run into is, like, we just haven't gotten to. We use a code push approach to our apps, where customers don't need to constantly update in the App Store or the Play Store, whichever one. But the downside of our current way of doing that is to release more quickly and to not have to have multiple versions. We've kind of forced everybody into the new version as soon as we push something out. And so, from a customer standpoint, having to do a download to then get access to your wallet account, especially in some of these lower bandwidth countries or regions. I mean, sometimes they can wait. I looked at the data actually recently, like 1.5 minutes was the median time that they had to wait while the package is downloaded, and I think it was like 4.5 minutes on average where people were because they would stop the process or go somewhere else. This has been pretty inefficient. So we've been trying not to interrupt customers, so they don't have to wait for the access to their money. But then that has kind of hurt our release cycle approach. And so I think one of the biggest things we need to do is make sure we can release, maybe asynchronously, maybe in the background for customers, so it minimizes their experience hit. So they can still move money as soon as they want to, and then think about it when they open their app, or see their money. But then at the same time, make sure our teams can push code when it's ready. And so that's like a big trade-off that we're trying to work through. Our goal is to get to fast feedback loops for learning, for anything. I mean, this isn't just about code. This is for internal communication. How do we, in this remote world where we have product managers, designers, developers, researchers, QA resources everywhere from the West Coast of the U.S. to 2 or 3 hours ahead in LATAM, to East Coast of the U.S., to in Europe, to in Asia. Like, we're pretty spread out all over these time zones. And so how do we make sure that our asynchronous work, how do we make sure our work stays a good mix of asynchronous and asynchronous, so that we can truly compete with like speed on this playing field. So that's another big thing that we're working on is the speed of communication, speed of feedback loops, and that other one I mentioned around like speed of code releases.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those are all, I think, very important things to improve upon. So that's awesome.
Oh, thanks, Chad.
How does the process look like if you have somebody that's on like a similar level as you, and you need to communicate with them, but they're in Asia. How does that work? Do you guys ask any of those people like in Asia or Europe even to adjust their schedules so they're a little bit more aligned with the reserve workday sort of thing? Or
Yeah, I'd say it's less of an adjusting, but just in the hiring process. Like we want to make sure that we're creating alignment as early in our team member funnel as possible. One of those things is how are we going to collaborate? And so there's collaboration styles, and then there's a big piece is availability of timeline. And so we've been pretty explicit about here's the overlapping time zones that we're looking to make sure we hit. It is different between like the R token and the RPay tribe, but that helps that alignment early in the interview process. So, I think sets expectations well. Some people are like, hey, I already worked that. That's not a big deal. Some people are like, hey, I'm so pumped about this. I'm willing and able to shift lifestyle a bit, and then there's others where it's just not a fit. And so weeding it out there is a big piece of making sure teams are efficient when our team members are efficient when they come in.
cool. Okay, that makes a lot of sense actually. So, Chad, do you have any questions from the team? Or, sorry, team community.
Yeah, so we have a few questions, I guess, with the last little bit of our time here. We'll probably wrap up at the top of the hour.
Do you want to invite that person and have them come up?
They wanted to stay anonymous.
Okay, cool.
So the first question that I got in the DMs was, will Reserve hit the web? As in, will you be able to access your account from the browser? And Payroll, I guess, is an example or one use case.
Yeah, that's a strong one. So we look at that, whether it's payment APIs or new mediums to access the services as to when when it makes sense, and how we make those decisions right now is it can be increasingly, like, the cost to put something out there versus the cost to maintain something are wildly different. And so we want to make sure that anytime we expand something that is either a new platform or new access to the Reserve ecosystem, the upside reward that we're pretty confident in terms of how much growth and value it has for our strategy versus that initial, but really the long-term cost of now needing to have someone responsible for the maintenance, potentially the improvements of that. And so that's where the real costs come into play. And so we're like, even when you noticed we were like, oh, when iPhone for over a year. I think we chose the right time for that, and even that might have been a bit early still. But the time when we bring a web platform accessibility will probably align with when we're pretty confident there's a core market segment or use case that is critical to the growth of the in our strategy to happen. And like, is that clear right now? It's clear who we know wants it from our existing customer base, but it's not particularly clear, and that would be useful versus a distraction versus some of the core utility that we want to be going after, which we think can be an even bigger opportunity.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like that answer.
I have another question that actually plays into that pretty well, I think.
Okay.
So I asked Nevin this a little bit ago, and so this is kind of maybe has nothing to do with you, but so I was talking to a few others about a like up and coming payroll feature for Reserve users. But is Reserve developing a desktop app of sorts that allows payroll and payable/receivables to be executed in a more efficient, powerful interface than a phone? If so, is Reserve developing this in-house? I would imagine a credit card processing system would be a part of this as well. Kind of like you go to the store and somebody has like an iPad with the swipey swipe thing right in it, and it's just all one big system. But yeah, and at that point, you might as well just develop a total point of sale system or something akin to that. This gets really kind of crazy, a big can of worms. I know this question. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think the cascading effect that you just kind of worked through there, Braden, is pretty good example of like, oh well, then there's this, then there's this, then there's this, and it's like, are we ready to invest in that? And one of the things that help us make this type of decision when we look at our regional strategy, it's how valuable, how much adoption is that going to create of Reserve as money in our regional goals. When we get bigger, going beyond Venezuela, and where our adoption levels are in some of these other regions, ones that are open, like Colombia, Argentina, and Peru, versus the ones that we want to get open. There aren't network effects there yet, and so when we look at the strategy, we're like, well, what are the ways that we need to provide utility that get a lot of active wallets, where then now that there's so many active wallets, the spendability of that money becomes much more important. And then you start looking at things like we're talking about here around merchant services. They become a lot more valuable then.
Okay. And so like my I asked this to Nevin and the table. And so the last part of that question is Reserve open to acquiring existing POS/payroll processing companies in Latin America to expedite deployment? Just kind of what can you tell us about that again? So maybe if you have another comment.
On the acquisition train, that's an interesting one. I do think that Reserve would make really good decisions, with its war chest of build versus buy, and there are situations that has come up, but even that situation where we're talking about merchant services, POS systems, I think it still comes back to when does Reserve need the payments ecosystem to be a core piece of its strategy, and like, do you start? Can you actually create a multi-sided market where consumers and merchants have that type of demand? That's pretty difficult. There's a cold start problem there. Whereas there may be faster ways for us to get active wallets, faster, less expensive, less complicated ways for us to get active wallets than trying to build the multi-sided markets right off the bat. And that, it's an example like in Venezuela. I think it was right around 50 to 100,000 active wallets there that we just started having this huge demand for the movement of money between people. And so getting to those levels, I think then opens up network effect strategies above that.
Thank you. I think that's a really good answer. Yeah, and then like I think the needed thing, if you guys were to develop your own POS and payment processing thing that you intended for people to have in their store, is that you have to combo that with hardware, and that's a lot of work. It's no simple thing, I would think. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, agreed.
So let's see here. Do we have any questions from the community? I see somebody's DMing me that Mug has questions, but he's not in here. So, you see that?
No, those all my DMs were asked already. So
Okay. Cool. Do you have any other final comments, Josh?
Nothing particularly comes to mind. It was fun hanging out with y'all. Happy to do it. Happy to get more team members on here to do some more things. So I know I've generally been pretty quiet in the background, but it's good to get out. Even hearing your voices for the first time, Braden and Chad, it's been awesome. So I had fun. Thanks for the thoughtful questions.
Yeah, I think we have been trying to put this on for a month and a half, and it finally worked. And so we appreciate it so much. I'm sure the community is going to love listening to this. So I do want to say thank you, Josh, very much, and thank you everybody else for coming. Thank you, Chad, and just hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Right. Oh, yeah. Elijah, thanks for the claps.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, everyone.
Take it easy, everyone.